All right, my brother Steven, what is going on? How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to meet in person.
Likewise, kind of, sort of in person, right? This is the closest we'll get for now until we
Right.
inevitably actually meet in person. Where you actually based out of?
I'm in Tampa. Kind of a new situation for me. Moved about a month ago from Chicago, so
Oh,
getting used to the weather, the heat. But yeah,
wow.
it's a good time so far.
That's like two different ends of the spectrum in terms of weather, right?
Oh yeah.
Dang. So what brought you down there?
New job. I had
Cool.
a long road and different paths through education, then a stint in the military. So I was in Virginia, then most recently Chicago, and then kind of had a chance to start fresh, new job, family in the area. So my wife and I moved down here to start over again.
Good for you, man. That is a thing that my wife and I talk about quite often, which is not living in New Jersey for the rest of our lives, and more so, more specifically, like making a move to another, place. We have a 16-month-old daughter now, and both of us have lived most or all of our lives in Jersey. I was born in New York, but the vast majority in Jersey, and my wife was born here. So yeah, we're definitely we're pretty confident, God willing, at some point in the next, let's say 5 years, within the next 5 years, we'll be somewhere else as well. And it's cool when I talk to people like yourself who have made that move. And I mean, it's brand new for you guys. So getting adjusted, and it sounds like it's going well so far. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. And my wife's from New York, so I drug her from New York first to Virginia, then to Chicago, and now we settled in Tampa.
There you go. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right. So, question I usually ask my guests to start with. I want to know a little bit about what little Steven was like. Like, what were you like growing up?
Oh man, let's see, taking it back. So I was, a pretty normal kid. Grew up. My parents were pretty strict. We were in church every Sunday, so they didn't put up with a whole lot of foolishness. I came to affect kind of music and how I interact with music. Because growing up, it was all sacred music. And
Hmm.
eventually, by the time I got to high school, I kind of started to sneak and listen to the radio and listen to more, I guess, secular music.
Hmm.
And I think Diddy, "My Boo" was like one of the first songs I remember like actually like listening to. So
Hmm.
that carried ramifications on until today, where I don't know all of the classics, but it's also refreshing that I'm kind of sometimes listening to music for the first time
Mm.
and building my library now. So I grew up a Navy brat, moved around a bunch. So new beginnings. Every 3 to 4 years, we'd move somewhere different. So
Mm.
I got really good at kind of fitting in and surveying a new scene and
Hmm.
seeing what worked for me, what didn't. And when it comes to music, that's when I started. I was probably in, I had to think about this, fourth or fifth grade when I started taking piano lessons. My parents didn't, they came from very humble beginnings, but they wanted my brothers and sisters and I to have more than kind of what they had. And one of those things was
Mm.
music, and they wanted us to be able to learn an instrument. So back then, they forced us to take music lessons, and I had to sit down and practice, several times a day. And I hated every second of it. And then eventually it just kind of grew, and it's something that I still was able to hold on to and still use to this day.
Hmm. What instrument did you say? Is it
Piano. We
keys?
all took piano
Piano, right?
lessons. I got a big piano. My brother
Okay.
and five sisters. So I can't imagine, us all practicing a half hour a day, 3 or 4 days a week. It's a lot of banging away on a piano. But my parents endured that because that's what they wanted for us.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool, very cool. How many years did you take lessons growing up? Was it like many years?
Yeah, I took lessons from probably sixth or seventh grade through high school, and then my
Yeah.
first year in college, I was studying sacred music. So several years of lessons.
Very cool. And would you study in college?
I started out as a sacred music major, so learning to be kind of a church musician. And at that point, I think the goal was maybe I'll be a music pastor or teach music lessons on
Mm.
the side. And then
Mm-hmm.
after that year, kind of plans changed and went a different direction.
Mm-hmm. And what'd you go into?
Yeah, I changed my major from sacred music to pre-physical therapy. Kind of a long story, but in between my freshman and sophomore years of college, I was working a job, was working construction at a hospital, and it was my first exposure to the healthcare field. And some of the guys I was working with were like, man, if I did it all over again, I'd be a doctor. And I saw these folks were working in air conditioning, and I was working in the sub basement, which is like the basement beneath the basement of this hospital doing electrical work.
Sub basement, yeah.
So I looked at that and I was like, well, what does it take to get to this point? And I kind of sat down and brainstormed and realized that if I did a pre-physical therapy major, I had a backup plan. I could be a physical therapist, or I'd have the prereqs to continue on to medical school. So that's the major I chose and knocked that out in 3 years and continued on.
Very cool. And what do you do? What do you do today?
Yeah, so now I'm an anesthesiologist and critical care medicine physician. After college, I did a master's program, actually in Tampa. So it's kind of full circle that I'm back.
Oh, cool.
Did a 1-year master's program in anatomy. And then I went to Howard University for medical school. And then went to University of Chicago for my residency training in anesthesiology. Took a detour into the Navy for 4 years where I practiced as an anesthesiologist. And then went back this last year to University of Chicago for a 1-year fellowship in critical care medicine. And I currently practice both anesthesiology and critical care medicine.
That's awesome. So you have a really, successful and awesome professional life. And you also have a whole other side of what you do musically as well as a podcast, right?
Yeah. The
Tell me about
podcast,
that.
I think in 2020, everybody was inspired anew. We were all kind of stuck at home. So finding different passion projects. I'd started back into music and started figuring out Logic Pro X and some producing. And I always want to give back to the community. There's healthcare disparities, different populations have worse healthcare outcomes than others. And one of the things that could fix that is increasing diversity within the healthcare workforce. So in the face of all of the disparate outcomes we saw with the pandemic, I launched the Black Doctors podcast. I just share stories from other minority healthcare personnel and kind of what they overcame to get to where they are today. What are they doing on their side hustles or side projects, or what do they do for fun, with the hopes that, students that are in high school or college or pre-med can listen to these episodes and figure out, have a better idea of the game plan and what it takes to accomplish their dream.
Yeah. What is that? That's awesome, by the way. And I think that's really cool to have a platform like that, something that is needed and something that I'm sure brings you joy, being able to connect with other people, like yourself and share stories, but also this is like evergreen type content, right? This is stuff that people can hopefully, prayerfully be able to be exposed to and be inspired by for years to come. So what is that like? What does it mean to you to have a platform like that?
It's incredible because it also evolved over time. In 2020, part of it was like the side hustle culture. Like, man, I need to get on YouTube. I see what Joe Rogan's doing, these podcasts, man, he can make so much money. And I'm not going to lie, initially I was like, I'm going to start this. I'm going to, get some side income. And I think after that first 2 or 3 weeks, when I'm like, oh yeah, I made $3 on this. It's like, wow, what is the true intent of what I'm doing? And maybe I should be focused on the money, as I was not being appropriately compensated, quote unquote, and realizing that this wasn't a get rich quick scheme. I started to get some feedback from some medical students and from some pre-med students who listened to the episode and were like, oh, this was so helpful. You had this person on, and I want to be a surgeon. And I realized that feedback and actually playing that part in people's lives, the fact that people let you in for 30 minutes, 45 minutes out of their day, is something that's so much more powerful than, an extra couple bucks in my pocket. And it's grown since then. I'm a physician. I don't need the side hustle or that extra income. I make plenty of money, and it's just a way now for me to give back. It's a way for me to provide a platform for other colleagues that are trying to establish themselves or starting their own practice in their communities. and the dividends, it's not financial, but it just feels incredible to know that I'm helping people.
That's awesome, dude. And it's really coming at an interesting time hearing this. And I just shared this with someone earlier. I'll give like the sort of brief perspective, but there was something that was shared with me in a YouTube video that I watched yesterday. And it was basically saying that everything that you do doesn't need to be money driven. There can be some things that we enjoy doing that can be a hobby that bring value in different ways, and it's important to acknowledge that. And you just eloquently stated that. That's exactly like what you're describing right now, and so I think that's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about music. So you hit me up. That's how we kind of got wind of each other through our joint, and I so eloquently have mine sitting right over here. My open field.
Oh man, you got the new.
Yeah. The new, yeah.
Let's see.
Yep.
Got the old school.
Bro, there it is, man. So I want to talk about this a little bit. So like, all right, what is this? This is your first teenage engineering device or product that you've owned, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so how long have you had that for? About?
I have had this for about 3 years now.
Okay. Very cool. So one of the things that I'm most intrigued about this specific item, the Field and the original OP1, is I'm very, very, very curious about how people use theirs. I'm curious about the individuals who use it as a pretty much standalone piece of hardware, that they make stuff on tape and they do all this stuff with that. I'm curious about people who connect it into their DAW and use it to like generate sounds and stuff like that. I use mine in the most strange way that I don't know if anyone else is really using it that way, but I'm kind of curious about like your workflow. Like, what do you use yours for? How do you use yours?
Yeah, first I got to take a step back and like think about how I found this random piece of kit, and a lot of it was you and having some videos on it. I was getting into synthesis because I looked around, like I want to do something that's crazy. I'm an okay keyboardist, I'm an okay musician, and I want to do something that doesn't focus so much on the piano chops that I once had, and now I'm desperately trying to get back. I want to do something a little different. So I looked around for different instruments and devices, and I came across some of your videos with this instrument. I'm like, yo, that's a weird little toy, this little Lego thing. Let me see what it's about.
Yeah,
and that's how I picked it up, and it's been just the incredible amount of growth over the last couple of years. Like when I first got this OP1, dude, I didn't even know I'm ashamed to admit, I didn't know that this was a keyboard. I'm looking at it like, I thought it was like, some buttons, and I didn't realize like, this is legitimately a keyboard, CD, cool. A, B, C, D, E. So that took me, a couple weeks, and I would pick it up, put it down, and I was like, all right, well, let me try and figure this thing out. So now I turn it on and I'm trying to make some sounds, and these sounds are just wacky. And I'm a pianist. I like, the analog, just instrument sound. So having to do all these buttons and knobs, and there's a cow on this thing. So I was just totally overwhelmed initially when I got it. So I put it down for probably like 3 or 4 months. And then as I warmed up to it, I was learning about music production. I was learning about envelopes and filters, and some more of your videos and other creators. I think Red Means Recording, like some of those other videos on YouTube were like, I'm like, whoa, you can do all of that with this. So then I started getting back into it, and I would just try and wrap my head around the 4-track recording and make a little ditty. And, I'm doing 8 bars, and I'm trying to, I didn't really know what, I'm doing a cover of some pop music, really wasn't sure how to use it. And then probably after that first year, I was like, okay, it's super portable. So, and I'm usually like, on the go. I work a lot of hours, but when I take a trip, it's super portable. It's got a great battery. So I'll take it on the plane with me. And now, I'm over there jamming out for at least, 2 or 3 hours out of a 4-hour flight.
Mm-hmm.
And then it progressed to, okay, well, now what do I do that I have it here? Let me go find the cable. Let me put it on my computer. Let me add some more effects and logic. And so that's kind of the growth that I have experienced with it. In terms of music production, I like kind of the lo-fi vibe, and I'm on this quest to make more lo-fi music as I have time or as my schedule permits. So I'm most active with it, when I'm traveling. It's my go-to, because then I have time. I'm on a flight. I have time to focus and just see what I can create.
Dude, that's incredible. What about the sequencers on there? Do you use any of those ever?
That's still a work in progress. Depending on how much time I'm spending on the device, being able to wrap my head around how to use a sequencer and how to make it sound good is still something that I'm struggling with. Coming from just the piano background, but it's getting better, and I like the learning process, because I can look back to 3 years ago when I didn't know how it worked. Yeah, and see how far I've progressed, but that's still a work in progress. I use the finger, or the
finger sequencer.
Yeah,
where you like press and hold it, and you can there's the animation on the screen and stuff.
Yeah,
the drummers or the people. That's a cool one. That's a really cool one. I asked that question because there's I think there's the same amount. Maybe this has one more called Hold, which is not much of a sequencer. It's essentially a way to play many keys and hold them together. I don't even know exactly the use case, specific use case for that, but I'm curious about what individuals out there use, and I actually fielded this question, I think, in the Teenage Engineering Discord, like people who are like super users of the product. Like, I want to know who uses the sequencers like quite often, and if so, which ones do you use? And specifically, like, of course, you may have seen like the sketch sequencer on here, right? Where it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I've tried that one. I can't figure that one out.
Very strange, right? It's like, okay, it's there, and of course there has to be someone out there, maybe multiple people out there, who use it to do all kind of weird things, along with like the Tombola, for example. I know for ambient music and stuff. So it's like, for me, like having such a strong interest in music technology and products like this, and like the OPZ, which we'll talk about in a second, sometimes I would feel like it's necessary, or not, I guess necessary for me to like fully know everything about something, and I would put pressure on myself to do that. Like, okay, if I don't know this part of this equipment, then I'm like losing out, I'm missing out on something, right? But now the new and improved version of Kevin realizes that that's not important at all, right? It's not important at all for music. It's like it's creativity. It's like we explore, we have fun with it, and that stuff is there. Maybe there's going to be a time where I'm more into, say, sound design or whatever, so you could start crafting your own sounds and figuring that stuff out. Right now may not be the season for that for me, and so just like letting down a little, taking the pressure off, and just kind of experimenting and just exploring what uniqueness this device has to offer,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard for me because I'm very formulaic, and I don't want to know how it works. Yeah, and same. When I start to let go a little bit, that's when this has been a lot of fun.
100%. Yep. And have you any experience with the Z, or have you? I'm sure you've seen it around the OPZ, or do you have one as well?
Yeah.
You do. Okay, so what's
your videos, man? I got you.
Oh, dope. So all right, so talk to me about, because totally different everything except for company, right? Like in terms of how you make music on here. This thing is my favorite, I think, currently, and maybe just altogether, like, favorite way of making music is on this. So like, do you have a lot of fun with this too? Do you use it just as much as the OP1?
Yeah, I'm more in a OP1 slash digital audio workstation field right now, or like a zone, if you will. I got that OPZ, OPZ, depending on where you're living, and I was surprised by how small it was when I opened the box. I'm like, yo, this is a TV remote. And same thing, I didn't know how to use it. I remember having to learn through the paperwork, like, how do you get to the different pages and how do you do this and that. And when I'm plugged in, it is a lot of fun figuring out how the sequencer works. And and again, that learning curve of having to look at the paperwork to get something created. And
Yeah.
then now, I've plugged it into my phone, and now I'm starting to like remember how I can get to the different pages, and okay, this is gonna, adjust the gain if I turn, the red knob,
Yeah.
or I can change the pitch or the filters. And so it's been a good learning process, and part of it is figuring out how to put that OPZ together with the OP1. I got the TX6 mixer, which is phenomenal, and
really good.
just it's almost too many ways to create. And when I have more time, I'm in a bit of a state of transition, so I can't spend as much time on the instruments as I'd like. But I'm excited to continue to learn these things.
Man, that's absolutely right. And you mentioned the size. I was traveling just recently, and there's like so many things about the Z that are different. Then it's a sequencer versus a 4-track recorder. So like foundationally, like how you make music is very different with quantization and all that stuff. But you mentioned the size, and like for me, having this in my hands while standing up, being wherever, having headphones on, and having like I have a lot of really dope music that I've created on here. So I like. It's like really, really good. And not to suit myself up too much, but I have some dope stuff that I made on here, right? So for me, being able to just like, I was at an airport last weekend, and I just had these same headphones on, and I was just standing up, and I was listening to my own music. And so that's one thing. But then, of course, the performance track, right? You could just experience your own music. You can remix it like instantly and discover things by just pressing buttons in the performance track. Now, okay, we know that like the first half and the second half are drums and then synth, and they're like matched up or whatever. So you can, take out the drums or take out the synth or do the fills or whatever. Like for me, that is just like, it's mind blowing. So the idea of like literally just standing up and like having your own little dance party type thing. I never use my field in any handheld. Like that's not really what this is for. But this is like, it's like handheld, and it's just, I don't know. It's such a very unique and not nearly as popular, right? People use it, but it's not nearly as popular as the OP1. But I'm glad that this was the first TE piece of device or equipment that I actually purchased.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, way back when. So I bought this right when it came out because I was curious about the OP1, but it was like out for however many years at that point, and I found out that they were coming out with the Z. I was like, all right, USB-C, smaller, newer, blah blah blah, not knowing that they're just completely different at that time. But I'm glad, and I'm very happy that I found that this existed and that it resonates with me so much.
Yeah, I'll say, because the sequencer part is very new to me. Before I got this, I picked up some Moog instruments, and the Mother 32 was like the sequencer, nice. And I still haven't wrapped my head around that. It was just a little too complicated, and again, I'm reading the book, then I'm getting a little better. But the OPZ was just so user friendly and easy. So I'm looking forward to getting better on that, and then going back to the Moog and seeing, what correlates, what translates, and okay, now I'm a little better on this instrument as well.
Nice. Wait, so the Moog has a sequencer built into it, is what you're saying, right?
Well, it is its own, like, I guess like a kind of a Euro rack module.
Oh, gotcha. Not a Moog keyboard. Or is it that?
Right. I got an analog Moog
cool.
set up with the Mother 32, the drummer from Another Mother, and the subharmonicon, which was kind of
Nice.
my intro to synthesizers and music synthesis. Yeah. And it was just, it's awesome to figure out that analog component of it. I know Teen Engineering has their analog synthesizers as well, but learning kind of the basics and then skipping ahead to something that's advanced, like the OP1 or the Z, and seeing how they kind of go back and forth has been very interesting in my music journey.
Yeah, and so one of the cool things too with like you were talking about, I think being able to possibly use the Z and the OP1 together. And so what I've been kind of experimenting a little bit with lately is, okay, so we talked about the performance aspect of the Z, and I was like, oh well, I can record a live performance onto tape by just using either USB-C or using like the line in or whatever, and have like a 6-minute recording. And then from there, I can re-perform that performance by, I don't know if you know about like loop in and loop out, like timing the loop in, loop out type thing if you want to do it that way. And then you can slide right to the next loop or previous loop of that song. Obviously, you could pitch shift. You can use the effects that are on here. So it's like, or you can just improvise and just play over it, or you could have a microphone and sing or rap or do whatever. So for me, that workflow is like really, really incredible. I've been having a lot of fun with that lately.
Endless.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Yep. So the TX6, you have that as well. So what kind of stuff do you do with that mostly?
So the TX6 was super helpful in terms of, part of it was I'm making music. I am putting stuff, I'll record a video for Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while, same thing. I got this guy and I'm like, this is freaking tiny. I don't know how to use it. And, digging through the manual and figuring out, bit by bit, uncovering the layers of how to use it. First, I had to get the right size cables because my cables were too big to fit in it. Yeah. Then realizing that I can record directly. I can plug a cable from here to my iPhone. So now I'm recording audio and video, and the audio is going straight in. Yeah, for sure. Now I can add my keyboard into the TX6. I can play along with a beat that I just created, and I can sync everything together. Like I'm still struggling with the synchronization piece, but the TX6 as kind of a home or a mixer has been very helpful, and I haven't had to go out and get like a legit mixer yet for my home studio. The effects that they have on the TX6 have been a lot of fun. So I'm already doing some effects with the OPZ or the OP1, and then I can add effects to the individual channel. So another layer of just again, endless possibilities with music creation. Totally.
Yeah, man. It is really, really cool. And I mean, I haven't had a chance to check out like the mic, or any of the new products, the mic or the CM15 or the TP7, but even just seeing what they're doing, right, with that same form factor and like this super, super, super high quality and mobile setup is like, it's fun and inspiring. It's like, wow, like they're crushing it in that space. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, really pushing the envelope. And I want that microphone because that'll be kind of the icing on the cake to add some voiceover work.
Yeah, for sure. Piano, you mentioned earlier. Do you have like an acoustic in the house, or do you have like a digital or both?
I've just got a digital. I've got a Nord Stage 2, which is, a little more advanced in my level of playing, but again, it gives me room to figure out how to mix in some organ or some keyboard or some synth. And then, I'll take this if I'm playing a gig. I played for my sister's wedding, and it's nice because I can actually hit the road with that. And it's just a solid piece of gear.
Yeah, I have a Nord Piano 5 over here, and it's relatively new, maybe like less than 6 months or something.
Oh, wow.
And I'm blown away by the key action in combination with all of the sounds, like the you booted up the first piano sound you have on there, but then because it's the Nord Piano 5, almost all the sounds in there are meant to be played by people who play the piano, as opposed to say a 88 key synthesizer workstation like which I've used in the past. Like a lot of the sounds on there are atmospheric and stuff, which are cool for certain things, but like I just love I can just turn, like there's one on there, I'm sure it might be, I would assume, on other Nord products as well, but there's one preset called, I think it's called AC guitar if I'm not mistaken, but there's some type of guitar in there, and I didn't even know this but I was like playing. I'm like, I really, really love the how authentic this sounds, and I didn't know, like it felt like more than just a really high quality sample, right? And I was watching a video, and a video on the product. They were doing an overview, and they said that some of the samples on here, or some of the sounds on here, use something called a round robin sample. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And they basically were saying that, like with this one, for example, the more, like not the more you press it, but every time you press one of the notes, it sometimes will play a slightly different version of the sample. Wow. Which to me is like genius, because like, oh, so you can get like real, almost, real-ish articulations of a guitar or other instrument. Like, I think that's quite genius. I haven't seen that on any other, keyboard or anything like it.
It's fun. Now, and again, my naivety when it comes to digital instruments, because I'm used to pianos. When I first bought this, because I plugged it in, I fired it up, and I'm like, where's the speakers? Because I didn't realize that when you get into like the legit keyboards, they don't come with speakers. I'm used to the Casios where you just you fire it up and you're going. So that was like I was like, oh, okay, now I got to get some headphones. Oh, it takes a 1/4-inch plus. So I've slowly had to like increase my music budget and the tools that I have, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I treat mine. I can actually turn this over. I treat mine like an acoustic instrument, in the sense of those speakers that you see there are Nord speakers that are designed to be used with this. Okay. And they sound absolutely phenomenal, and the placement of them. So I rarely, am I still good in frame? I rarely, if ever, use that keyboard with headphones. I love, and I'm sure you could relate to this too, like for like playing an acoustic piano, like playing music into the atmosphere and hearing them through your ears versus just with headphones. It's a major difference, obviously, with the family, as do I have as well. So it's like, it's cool to have that ability to plug in and just, jam out or something like that. But I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm like staring at it as I'm talking to you. I'm like, can't wait to go over there. Can't wait to go over there and play that thing later. Do you practice still regularly? I know you said you used to be a better piano player than you currently are. Do you still like have a practice regimen?
I don't. No. And it's been the story of my life. So when I changed majors from music to the sciences, I had to go all in just to get my application ready for medical school, to get the grades. And for those, 3 years of college, I practiced or played very infrequently at that point. All my time was spent, I was working a part-time job. I was doing, cramming all of the upper level science courses in. And then I started my graduate school program. That's when I got my first keyboard, because I'm like, I really miss this. And I played, every couple of weeks. I started playing with my church when I was in Tampa. But again, it was that work life, like, I've got to get these, I got to study, I got to work. Yeah. Music's going to take the back burner. And it's been a period of, I'll pick up an instrument and then I'll put it down for months at a time. When I started medical school, I had no time to practice when I was first, starting out. Yeah. And then my second year of medical school, started playing with my church worship team. So I would play like 2 weekends a month, and they'd have 4 or 5 services. So for those last 3 years of medical school, I was practicing regularly, I was playing regularly, and I saw tremendous growth in my sight reading and my, playing by ear, following chord charts. I then went to residency where, our duty hours were capped at 80 hours a week for work. And I had my keyboard, but I didn't have the time to play. Towards the end of residency, my 3rd or 4th year, I had a little bit more time. I started playing with a local praise and worship team again. So it's been, as life gets super busy, I have to cut back on the music, because let's be honest, it's not paying the bills. Where I'm at now, I moved. I'm settling into a new job. I play, maybe once, twice a week, whether it's one of the OP1 or whether it's digging out and reading some sheet music. and I'm studying for I have a board exam coming up in a couple months. So a lot of my focus is on that. And then hopefully once that's, in the background, I can get back to a regular practice regimen.
Yeah. So just finding that, I like that, man. The balance of the different hats that we wear, the different responsibilities that we have, and knowing that the fun things, the creative things that you and I both really enjoy right now at this exact moment is not a season where you can do that as much as you may want to, but you sort of acknowledge that you're doing the work that's necessary with the different things, the transition, the board exam that you just mentioned, that you could, at some point, hopefully in the near future, like time, it'll open up more. And now I have 4 days or something like that to kind of play and have fun.
I got to mention, because part of that commitment is my wife. So I got to spend some time with the wife,
of course,
and keep their priorities in line. So I got to make sure I throw her in there as well.
Dude, yeah, I mean, yes, 1,000%. That is, you know what, too, like from a content creation perspective, because a lot of what I do is so enjoyable, and this is, again, having conversations with people like this, it's like super helpful for me for perspective. It's like I really enjoy the fact that what I enjoy doing is pouring right into my overall brand, right? It's like this partnership possibilities. There's this platform, which I love connecting with people. This is my tutoring business. I have a math tutoring business called K-Mat. So we tutor math, English, and piano lessons virtually and in person. So a lot of different avenues, right, that I'm kind of working on right now. And the danger with it, though, as I'm realizing, is, what is the danger? The danger is that if I enjoy it so much, it's harder to separate and say that, like, oh, okay, 5 o'clock or whatever time, like, okay, from 5 to 10 p.m., I'm not doing this stuff. Or if I am doing it after my daughter, I have a 16-month-old, right, as well. So after she goes down, maybe I'm practicing piano a little bit, I'm playing a little bit, but I'm not doing something that's directly like pouring into the content stuff. And that's been a challenge for me. Yesterday was my birthday, and I had a realization. Thank you, man. Thank you. I had a realization. I'm sitting in the bed like 5 in the morning. We had a really nice spa day. This place called Sojo Spa in Edgewater. Shout out Sojo. Mad nice, like 12 hot baths with different mineral properties and all this stuff. It's a really, really nice spot. But before we did that, I was just sitting. I was like, all right, I got to get myself up out of bed. I want to try to make it to the gym because it's been about a week or a little less than a week since I was able to go. So I went there, and then I've been feeling like this. I'm putting a lot more attention to my Instagram. I'm like, oh, I got to have like a column for piano tutorials, a column of like high quality pictures of me and or Mia with my gear, and then a column of clips of Khordmaster keys. I want to I want to do all this stuff. I want it to be easier for people to see and all that. And I'm happy with where that's going right now. However, that coupled with these other potential brand partnerships and things that I'm working on, waiting on emails for, dude, I was like checking my email and checking my phone way too much like the past several weeks, and I was feeling it. I was like, okay, something's got to give. This is not, I don't like this. I have notifications on Gmail, so I'll know when I get the email because it'll ring or whatever, but I still go into the app. I'm like, maybe I missed it. Let me just, what I'm saying? Maybe it's going to come right now, so let me just swipe and see if it's just coming. So I had to like really make a stand yesterday, and I was just like, all right, so I need this season right now. All of these distractions for my apps all these distractions on my phone need to be deleted immediately, post haste. Even as a content creator, let me slow down a little bit, and let me say, oh, okay, I have this is iPad mini, I have the apps on here for when I'm working and stuff. But overwhelmingly, it's been great. It's only been a day, right, granted, but it's been like really nice just not having access to all of that stuff on there. And prayerfully, it's something that I could keep going for as long as it needs to, right? I've done this in the past, and it's been a few weeks, sometimes a few months, and then I'm like, all right, let me dive back in, kind of thing. But right now, I think it's a really good time for it.
It's been helpful for me because I've been on this journey for the last 3 or 4 years, like separating social media. Like for me, it's not a business. it's been awesome. I saw so many med influencers, people like making tons of money, brand sponsorships, and that's what I wanted. But then realizing that at this point in my life, I didn't have the time to commit to that. It just wasn't the right season for me. So whether than, instead of trying to be that influencer to post this, healthcare related content and clips, I just gave up. I said, hey, this isn't my business. I'm going to post whatever I want. And for me, it's, random lo-fi beat every now and then. Eventually, I made a rule that I don't post when I'm on vacation. I'll post like when I'm back from vacation. I'll post one or two. Right. I think people get the perception that people think that I am always making music, that I'm always podcasting, that I'm always doing these things. And I think we all get caught up on people being the perfect influencer or living the perfect lives and realize like these are small snippets of people's lives. So for me, I got off that train. Right now, I'm not monetizing my content. So I'm going to post whatever I feel like. I'm not beholden to making a pretty page. Now, obviously, if you're in part of your business is this, you've got different ways to navigate that and categorize and make sure you're fulfilling all your time responsibilities. But it was helpful for me to get that burden off of like, I'm not an influencer, I'm just a regular dude. If you want to watch what I'm doing, that's cool. If not, you can go follow Khordmaster and get your music lessons, get your math tutoring. So it's been helpful in my kind of periods of growth.
Having that realization, and it seems like for sure, even I think you even mentioned it, but just like a methodical way of thinking about things and just realizing that being thoughtful is helpful sometimes, to just sit back and just think, and it sounds like many times in your life and your career, as you just described, you've done that, and it's kind of helped you with perspective and things like that, which I think is incredible. Okay, so we're going to get ready to wrap up. I'm just going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. Okay. Number one, name a movie and a show that you love.
Ooh, so a show that I love. I just finished watching The Bear season 2 on FX.
Oh, I just finished episode 7. Episode 6 in season 2 was one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Was that the Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah. Yes. Or Christmas, but yes.
Christmas. Man, that joint was so chaotic.
Oh, my God. Yo. Okay. I didn't know that was Jamie Lee Curtis either. I had no idea that was her.
It took me a minute.
Did it? Okay. I was just like, who is, like, yo, I have to watch it again. And one thing at the very beginning of that episode, because we watched it in 2 different, like, sittings, like, once, and then we had, like, a little weekend getaway, and then we watched it, like, 4 days later, the rest of it. At the beginning, I was like reading a little description about it, like an overview of the episode afterwards. I was so captivated. And one thing that was interesting is the conversation that was being had at the very beginning between, I think his name is Mikey, and the sister.
Yeah.
Mikey. So the conversation was Mikey telling her, like, be careful and saying, are you okay? To your mom, because blah blah blah, like that whole thing was, and then of course how it culminated at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah, that show, that concept of being okay, and like the way it ended, I'm not going to spoil it, but with her character is like, I hadn't seen that in a show before, where it was kind of the furthest thing from a happy ending, but it wasn't a big piece of the overall episode. It was just one person's struggle that maybe I didn't fully understand, but it was a big deal for that character. And I thought they did a really good job of framing that, because that's how we are in life, right? Something that's an issue for you isn't an issue for me, and vice versa. But respecting, hey, that's a big deal. That was an awesome thing from that whole season.
Oh, totally. How about a movie?
Man, I gotta go back. Pulp Fiction is my all-time favorite movie.
Nice.
Quentin Tarantino, classic. The dialogue is just, it can't be beat.
There's like so many movies like that I've seen just as a kid and haven't seen since. Like I've seen when I was 10 years old, 12, whatever. So I have to like have to. I don't know. That's a strong word, but I should make it a point to go back and like catch some of these classics again through a different, different lens. All right, last question. Name a place that you visited that you loved.
A place I visited that I've loved. Let's see. Most recently, well, I'll give you two places. Most recently, I was in London for 2 weeks as into my kind of ICU training. I worked with the NHS, the British kind of healthcare system, and I was there for 2 weeks. But I picked a neighborhood to live in called Brixton, and I think I first heard about it from Steve McQueen, who's a movie producer, and he had a series, and some things you'll see and they'll kind of stick in your mind, and then next thing you know, you're doing something you don't really know why. But I remember like showing up to Brixton, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of diversity here. It felt like a Brooklyn or Queens, and then realizing that it was where a lot of immigrants settled in England. The Windrush was like a ship that came from the Caribbean and brought a lot of immigrants. So it was this huge immigrant neighborhood, very diverse, and it was just an incredible experience to be immersed in that culture that was very similar to like some of the neighborhoods that you'd seen in the States. So it was an awesome experience. The second place was my wife and I went to Lisbon. Lisbon, Portugal is incredibly diverse, and there's this place, Sintra, which is like if a billionaire from 800 years ago had a castle. Like it's just incredible, like castle with secret tunnels, and it is all like overgrown and lush and green, and it's just an incredible place. If you're ever in Lisbon, definitely check it out.
Dang, that's so cool. That's really cool. I gotta add that to the list. There's so many places that I want to be able to travel to, and prayerfully do what needs to happen in this season to put ourselves in position to be able to do that and explore. I was at Greece for us. We went to Greece, Athens and Santorini. Best place that we've ever been to by far. It was the perfect balance of like adventure and culture and relaxation and great food.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how was the food?
We ate so much and we walked so much and we lost weight.
No way.
Because there was no additives and stuff, right? It was like much better quality than what we're used to out here. We were like expecting to like put on like a ton. We had food tours and all that stuff, but we did like a lot of we did one hiking, but a lot of walking as well. So it was just like the perfect trip. Like, whatever I would have considered for like our honeymoon, like being something that's memorable that I talk about all the time. Like that was it.
That sounds amazing.
My man, pleasure meeting you. Let's definitely do this again. I appreciate you taking the time out, and I mean, we'll definitely just be talking offline because I think there's just more friendship opportunity and just connecting and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
That needs to be had. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I say thank you for what you put out into the world, because again, a lot of the videos you made, the educational gems you dropped helped me in my journey and got me to where I am today. So much appreciated.
Love that. Enjoy the rest of your day, bro.
All right. Appreciate it.